You know, out of 20 plus years of being hooked on crack, I spent probably about 6, 7 years homeless on the street. You know, I was the guy that you would see. I mean, I stink really bad. I'm just gonna be honest. I was a crack addict that stinked. I didn't wash up. I didn't think about washing up. I probably was one of the nastiest, dirtiest people you would have saw on the street. And I know today you can't look at me and tell, and you can't look at some of the beautiful people who are hooked on crack right now and tell who they really are until they ever get away from that monster. But being on the street was very difficult for me, right? Because you have nowhere to live. I remember sleeping in bushes, literally sleeping in these big old bushes, because when you're down in a homeless community, you have to find anywhere you can to have some kind of shelter or something like that. So I remember a couple of places that I had to sleep in, and I had no problems with rats running around and jumping over me. The bushes that I slept in, I remember one day downtown that I was just laying there, just out of my mind, high and drunk, and I remember just rats just jumping. And y'all gonna look at me like I'm crazy, like, man, how could you do that? But I'm telling you, when you get on drugs, you do when you live in such a way as if you are an animal, right? So I had no problem sleeping down there in the bushes downtown. And I remember living in this crack house, right? And so in this house, there was a bunch of people living there. But let me tell you, on the floor, when you first walk in, you would see a dead rat on the floor just laying there. Nobody tried to pick it up. And you would see there was many animals living inside of that house. But let me tell y'all, you know, I thank the Most High God that He delivered me from that. But that was the life that I lived for like 6, 7 years on the street, 20 plus years on crack. And it was completely horrible. But that's only the beginning of what it's like to live on the street, because you get humiliated by a lot of people, right? People who even call themselves people of church, people of God, they humiliate you, you know, when you're trying to get some help or asking for something. And I don't advocate that you have to give your money or help anybody eat. But if you say that you're a person of the Most High, then that's something that you should do, because the Bible clearly says to feed the homeless, you know. But that was my life on the street. That was my life, part of my life. It was so much more that came with that. You know, I put a post up the other day about how kids are so disrespectful to their parents. They're so disrespectful to their elders. Now, again, I'm not talking about all kids. There are a lot of kids who are out here handling their business. But on the flip side, there are kids who are very disrespectful. And I got a comment from one of the people on my social media page who was saying that no, it's not the kids' fault. The parents raised these kids wrong, and that is not true at all. That is completely wrong, especially if you're a believer of the Bible. That is completely false. If you look at Psalms 58 1 through 3, it clearly tells you. Remember, 58 1 through 3. It clearly tells you that wickedness and evilness is born from the womb. From the very womb, it says, from the moment they come outside the womb, they begin speaking lies. This has nothing to do with the parents. This is that evil is born. And a lot of times it's when a parent might hook up with another person who may have a